This title belongs to me, not some black trash on a free ride.
Brooke stormed the stage and ripped the diploma from Gloria's hands. The tearing sound cut the air like a slap. 2,000 people stopped breathing.
My father built this school. You're nothing. You're nothing. That diploma had my name on it. That diploma had my name on it. Your name means nothing. Nothing here.
Gloria knelt to reach for the halves. A fist closed around her hair and jerked her head back. Pain shot through her scalp.
That's right. Your kind only deserves to kneel beneath us white folk.
Gloria's back straightened, eyes steady, voice firm.
I earned every letter on that page. Earned?
Brooke shoved her forward.
You're a damn joke.
But in the last row, a woman no one noticed was slowly rising. The girl who tore that diploma had no idea what it was about to cost her father. Have you ever watched someone rip apart everything a person earned and then lose everything they ever had because of it? Because you are about to so drop a comment. If you love justice served, hit that like, and let me take you back to where this whole thing started. Let me take you back to that morning. Pennington University sat on 60 acres of green land in Virginia. Old brick buildings, white columns, the kind of campus that looked like it belonged on a postcard. And on this Saturday in late May, the whole place smelled like fresh-cut grass and expensive perfume. Graduation day. Rows and rows of white chairs stretched across the grand pavilion. 2,000 seats, every single one filled. Families clutching flowers and homemade signs. A camera crew from the university was set up on the left side of the stage. The red light was already blinking. The live stream had started 15 minutes early. This was supposed to be the proudest day of Gloria Oliver's life. That morning she stood in her tiny apartment near campus. The kitchen counter was covered in textbooks she hadn't packed yet. A second-hand lamp buzzed on the desk. She ironed her graduation gown slowly, carefully pressing every crease flat, like it mattered more than anything she'd ever worn. Because it did. Gloria had spent 4 years at Pennington, 4 years of late nights in the biomedical engineering lab, 4 years of eating ramen when her meal plan ran out, 4 years of keeping her head down, earning her grades, and telling no one, absolutely no one, who her mother was. That was the deal she made with herself the day she moved in. No special treatment, no whispers, no one looking at her differently because of a last name or a title. She wanted to earn her place here the same way she earned everything else. Alone. She picked up her phone and called her mother. Naomi Oliver picked up on the second ring. Her voice was warm and soft. She told Gloria she was proud of her, that today was Gloria's day, that she'd be in the audience but would sit somewhere in the back, somewhere quiet, so she wouldn't draw any attention. Gloria smiled. "You don't have to hide, Mom." "I'm not hiding," Naomi said. "I just want today to be about you. Only you." They hung up. Gloria zipped up her gown, looked at herself in the bathroom mirror for a long moment, and walked out the door. Now let me tell you about the other side of this story. A black town car pulled up to the front entrance of the pavilion at exactly 9:15. Charles Hamilton stepped out like he owned the ground beneath his feet, and in many ways he did. Hamilton Industrial, his company, had donated more money to Pennington University than any other donor in its history. The new science building had his name on it. The football stadium had his name on it. Half the scholarships in the engineering department were funded by his foundation. Charles shook hands with Margaret Lawson, the university principal, before the ceremony even started. They smiled at each other like old friends. Because they were. Behind him, a white SUV pulled up. Brooke Hamilton stepped out with her phone pressed to her ear. She was complaining to a friend about having to sit with the rest of the graduating class instead of the VIP section. She hung up without saying goodbye. Brooke had spent 4 years at Pennington expecting one thing, the valedictorian title. Her father's money built this place. His donations kept the lights on. In Brooke's mind, the title wasn't something you earned. It was something you were owed. And for 4 years, she watched a black girl on a scholarship beat her in every class, every exam, every research paper. A girl with no connections, no family name, no money. Gloria Oliver outscored Brooke Hamilton on pure merit, and Brooke hated her for it. Not because Gloria did anything wrong, but because Gloria's existence was proof that money couldn't buy everything. And the friction between them wasn't new. 4 years of snide comments in hallways. 4 years of Brooke telling classmates that Gloria only got in because of affirmative action. Once Brooke even called campus security on Gloria for being in the lab too late at night. Nothing ever came of it. Nothing ever did. Because no one at Pennington was going to discipline a Hamilton. By 9:30, everyone was seated. Charles was in the front row VIP section, legs crossed, checking his watch. Naomi had arrived 20 minutes earlier. She chose a seat in the very last row, far from the stage, far from the cameras. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, looking like any other proud mother. No one gave her a second glance. The string quartet started playing, the processional began, and the red light on the camera kept blinking. Backstage smelled like hairspray and nervous sweat. 46 students stood in 2 lines behind the curtain, gowns pressed, caps pinned, hands fidgeting with tassels. Some were whispering to each other, some were staring at the ceiling, mouthing the words to prayers their grandmothers taught them. Gloria stood near the front of the line. She was the valedictorian. She'd walk out first. She held her speech notes in her left hand. The paper was slightly damp from her palm. She folded it once, then unfolded it again. She wasn't nervous about the speech. She'd rehearsed it 40 times. She was nervous about what the speech meant. First in her family to graduate from a 4-year university, first to stand behind a podium like this, first to hear her name read aloud in a place like Pennington. She closed her eyes and took a slow breath. The smell of fresh wood drifted in from the stage. Somewhere beyond the curtain, the string quartet was warming up. She could hear the faint scratch of a bow against strings. That's when she heard the footsteps behind her. Brooke Hamilton walked straight up to Gloria, not beside her, not casually, directly in front of her, close enough that Gloria could smell her perfume, something expensive, something sharp. Brooke didn't whisper, she didn't pull Gloria aside, she spoke loud enough for every student within 10 feet to hear. "You know damn well that title is mine." Gloria looked at her, calm, still. "Your title," Gloria said. "I didn't know GPA was something you could inherit." A few students nearby shifted uncomfortably. Someone let out a small, nervous breath. Brooke's face tightened, her jaw locked. She took a half-step closer. "You think you're smart? You think because some committee gave you a free ride you actually belong here?" She paused. Her eyes moved slowly down Gloria's gown, then back up. The kind of look designed to make someone feel small. "You're a joke," Brooke said. "A damn diversity checkbox, that's all you've ever been. That's all you'll ever be." The words hung in the air like something rotten. 2 students near the back of the line exchanged a look. A girl with red hair turned her face away. No one spoke. No one was going to get between a Hamilton and anyone. Gloria didn't step back. She didn't raise her voice. She held Brooke's stare the way someone holds a door firm without effort. "If that's what you need to believe," Gloria said quietly, "then I feel sorry for you." Brooke's nostrils flared, her lips pressed into a thin white line, her fingers curled at her sides. For a second it looked like she might say something else, something worse. The muscles in her neck tensed. The air between them felt like glass about to crack. But a faculty coordinator appeared at the end of the line and clapped twice. "Places, everyone. We're starting." Brooke held Gloria's gaze for one more beat. Her eyes didn't blink. Then she turned and walked to her spot in line. Her heels clicked hard against the concrete floor. Each step sounded deliberate, like punctuation at the end of a threat. The students who had heard the exchange looked at Gloria, some with sympathy, some with something closer to fear. None of them said a word. That silence said everything. It said, "We heard it, we know it's wrong, but we're not going to do a thing about it." Gloria unfolded her speech notes again. Her hands were steady. The processional music started, a string quartet playing something classical and clean. The curtain parted, sunlight flooded the backstage corridor. The heat of the Virginia sun pressed against their faces like a warm hand. One by one, the graduates walked out. Gloria stepped into the light first. The applause began the moment the audience saw her cap. Her name hadn't even been called yet. People were clapping because they knew. The program said it, the banners said it. Gloria Oliver, valedictorian, summa cum laude, biomedical engineering. She walked to her seat in the front row of the graduate section. She sat down. She placed her speech notes on her lap. She didn't look for her mother in the crowd. She didn't need to. She could feel Naomi watching her from somewhere in the back, the way she always did, quiet, invisible, present. The ceremony opened with Margaret Lawson at the podium. The principal welcomed the guests, thanked the donors, and mentioned Charles Hamilton's name 3 times in her opening remarks. She praised his generosity, She praised his vision. She praised the new science building that bore his name. She did not mention Gloria's name, not once. In the VIP section, Charles sat with his legs crossed. He nodded slowly when his name was read. He adjusted his cufflinks. He looked around the pavilion the way a landlord looks at property calculating satisfied board. He did not clap for anyone. 20 minutes later, Margaret Lawson returned to the microphone. And now it is my honor to invite our class valedictorian, Gloria Oliver, to the podium. Gloria stood. Her gown rustled against the chair. She climbed the 5 steps to the stage. The wood creaked slightly under her feet. She placed her notes on the podium. She adjusted the microphone down. She was shorter than the last speaker. She looked out at 2,000 faces. And then she spoke. She didn't talk about grades. She didn't list her achievements. She talked about her first night at Pennington, when she sat alone in her dorm room staring at the ceiling and wondering if she'd made a mistake. She talked about walking into a lecture hall and being the only black face in a room of 40. She talked about the professor who pulled her aside after class and told her she'd need to work twice as hard as everyone else, and how she decided right there in that hallway to work 3 times as hard instead. She talked about eating ramen for 3 weeks straight because her meal plan ran out and she was too proud to ask for help. She talked about falling asleep in the library so many times that the night security guard started leaving a blanket on her chair. She talked about her mother. Not by title, not by position. She called her the woman who worked double shifts so I could buy textbooks. She called her the person who told me every single night that no one can take away what you earn with your own hands. Her voice cracked on that last line, just barely, just enough for the whole pavilion to feel it in their chest. The audience was silent, not the uncomfortable silence of the backstage confrontation. This was different. This was the silence of 2,000 people holding their breath because they didn't want to miss a single word. And then she finished. The applause didn't build slowly, it erupted. People stood, first one row, then another, then the entire pavilion. 2,000 people on their feet. Some were clapping, some were crying. A father in the 3rd row held up a handmade sign that read, "First Generation." A woman in the middle section pressed both hands over her mouth and sobbed. Strangers turned to each other and nodded. There was something in the air that felt bigger than graduation. It felt like proof that someone with nothing but hard work and a stubborn heart could stand at the top and earn it. In the last row, Naomi Oliver wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, quietly, the way she did everything. She didn't stand. She didn't wave. She just watched her daughter and let the tears fall. But not everyone was standing. In the graduate section, Brooke Hamilton sat frozen, arms crossed, jaw clenched so tight that a vein pulsed near her temple. Her knuckles had gone white against her elbows. She stared straight ahead at the stage, not at Gloria, through her, like she was trying to burn a hole in the air. Next to her, a classmate nudged her arm. "Aren't you going to stand?" Brooke didn't answer. She didn't move. Her chest rose and fell in short, shallow breaths. Something behind her eyes was building, something hot and sharp and dangerous, the kind of rage that doesn't cool down, the kind that waits. In the VIP section, Charles Hamilton glanced at his watch. He hadn't clapped once, not a single time during the entire speech. He leaned toward Margaret Lawson and murmured something in her ear. She nodded quickly, the way people nod when they're agreeing with someone who signs their checks. The standing ovation lasted nearly a full minute. Gloria walked back to her seat. Her hands were still steady, her eyes were dry, but inside her chest, something was glowing warm and bright, like a light she'd been carrying for 4 years that was finally allowed to shine. She had no idea that in less than an hour, someone would try to rip that light out of her hands. Literally. The ceremony moved on. The applause settled. The string quartet played a short interlude while Margaret Lawson shuffled papers at the podium. The next segment was the Outstanding Student Awards, honors given to seniors who excelled in research, leadership, and service. 4 names were called. Gloria's was the 3rd. She climbed the steps again. This time the audience clapped warmly but didn't stand. It was a smaller moment, a quieter one. She received a satin ribbon and a framed certificate from the dean of the engineering department. She shook his hand. She smiled. She turned to walk back down. That's when Brooke made her move. Gloria was 2 steps down from the stage when Brooke appeared at the bottom of the staircase. She didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, blocking the path, feet planted, arms at her sides, chin lifted. Gloria stopped. She held the certificate against her chest. "Excuse me," Gloria said. Brooke didn't move. "I said excuse me." Brooke stepped forward and shoved Gloria square in the chest with both hands, hard. The kind of shove that comes from the shoulders, the kind that means something. Gloria stumbled backward. Her heel caught the edge of the bottom step. She went down. Her back hit the ground first, then her elbow. The framed certificate skidded across the tile floor. The sound of it sliding echoed through the first 3 rows. A gasp rippled through the audience. Heads turned. Phones came out. The live stream camera swung to the left, catching the tail end of the fall. Brooke stood over her. She looked down the way someone looks at something they stepped in. "Stay down," Brooke said. "That's where trash like you belongs." Gloria lay on the ground for 2 seconds. 2 full seconds where the whole pavilion held its breath. 2 seconds where the heat of the concrete pressed against her back and the Virginia sky stretched wide and blue above her. Then she moved. She pushed herself up, slowly, one hand flat on the ground, then the other. She got to her knees, then she stood. She brushed the dust off her white dress. A gray streak ran across the back of her gown. Her elbow throbbed, already swelling beneath the fabric. She picked up the certificate. She looked at Brooke. "That says more about you than it ever will about me." Her voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It was the kind of steady that takes more strength than screaming. Brooke's face flushed red. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She wasn't used to people talking back, especially not people she'd just put on the ground. From the VIP section, Charles Hamilton had seen everything. He didn't stand. He didn't call out. He caught Margaret Lawson's eye and gave her a look that said, "Handle this quietly." Lawson gripped the podium. She'd seen it all, the shove, the fall, the microphone. "We will now continue with the ceremony." No pause, no acknowledgement, no "are you okay," just moving on, like nothing happened, like a girl didn't just get shoved to the ground on her own graduation stage, on live camera, in front of 2,000 witnesses who would remember this for the rest of their lives. Gloria walked back to her seat. She sat down. She placed the certificate on her lap. Her elbow throbbed under the gown. The dust on her dress was still visible. She didn't try to wipe it again. She sat straight. She looked forward. She waited. In the last row, Naomi's hands had gone still in her lap. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes had changed. Something behind them had gone quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that comes right before a decision that changes everything. The ceremony continued. Margaret Lawson called names one by one for the diploma presentation. Each graduate walked across the stage, shook her hand, and received their diploma. Polite applause for each, smiles, camera flashes. The rhythm was predictable and steady. When Brooke Hamilton's name was called, the applause was thin, polite, scattered. A few people in the VIP section clapped louder than the rest, but the sound died fast. Brooke took her diploma, posed stiffly for the photo, and walked off without smiling. Her jaw was locked. Her eyes swept across the audience like she was counting who hadn't clapped loud enough. Then came Gloria's name. "Gloria Oliver!" The reaction was immediate. The applause hit like a wave crashing onto shore. People stood not all at once, but in a rolling motion that swept from the back of the pavilion to the front. Someone whistled. A group of students in the middle section started chanting her name. 2,000 people were on their feet again. The sound filled the pavilion and pushed against the sky. Gloria climbed the steps one last time. Margaret Lawson handed her the diploma with a tight, forced smile. Gloria took it with both hands. She held it up just enough for the audience to see. She turned toward the crowd and smiled. A real smile. Wide and warm and full of everything she'd carried for 4 years. In the last row, Naomi pressed her hand against her heart. Her lips moved silently, words only she and God could hear. In the graduate section, Brooke was watching. She watched 2,000 people stand for Gloria Oliver. She watched them cheer for the girl she'd called a charity case. She watched them cry for the girl she'd shoved to the ground 20 minutes ago. She sat there and watched the whole world celebrate someone she believed with every bone in her body was beneath her. The applause kept going. Louder, longer. It didn't fade. It kept building like a tide that refused to pull back. Something inside Brooke cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like a wall that had been holding back years of jealousy and rage and entitlement and now had one too many fractures to hold. She stood up. She didn't walk. She cut through the row of seated graduates, stepping over legs and bags, heading straight for the stage. A classmate grabbed her arm. She yanked it free without looking back. She reached the stage in 6 seconds. Gloria was still holding her diploma. Still smiling, still facing the crowd. She didn't see Brooke coming from behind. She didn't hear the footsteps over the cheering. Brooke snatched the diploma from Gloria's hands and ripped it in half. The sound cut through the cheering like a blade through glass. The applause collapsed instantly. 2,000 voices went silent at the same moment. The live stream was still running. Every camera in the pavilion, professional and personal, was pointed at the stage. The two halves of the diploma drifted to the floor like dead leaves. Gloria's smile disappeared. Her face went still. She looked down at the torn pieces and knelt slowly to pick them up. Brooke grabbed a fistful of her hair from behind and jerked her head back. Gloria's neck bent sharply. Pain shot down her spine like electricity. Her knees scraped hard against the wooden stage floor. Brooke leaned down close. Her breath was hot against Gloria's ear. That's right. Your kind only deserves to kneel beneath us white folk. You're nothing. You will always be nothing. She held the grip for 3 full seconds. 3 seconds where 2,000 people watched and no one moved. 3 seconds where every camera recorded every frame. 3 seconds where the only sound in the entire pavilion was Gloria's breathing, slow, controlled, refusing to break. Then Brooke let go. She shoved Gloria's head forward. She straightened up. She wiped her palms on her gown like she'd touched something dirty, and she walked off the stage like she'd just finished taking out the trash. The auditorium was paralyzed. Some had their hands pressed over their mouths. Some stood with phones raised, recording but unable to speak. A child in the 4th row buried her face in her mother's arm and started crying. An old man in the 2nd row shook his head slowly over and over, like he couldn't believe what his eyes had just shown him. Gloria was alone on the stage. She gathered the 2 halves, one in each hand. She pressed them together against her chest. She stood up slowly. She smoothed her hair back with one hand. She straightened her gown. Then she walked off the stage, head high, back straight, eyes forward, not a single tear. In the last row, Naomi Oliver sat completely still. The softness was gone from her face. The tears were gone. What was left was something harder, something colder, something that had made decisions in rooms full of generals and senators and had never once flinched. She placed both hands on the armrests of her chair, and she waited. For 5 seconds, nobody in that auditorium moved. The silence was so thick you could hear the flag on the pavilion roof snapping in the wind. Then the crowd woke up. Voices erupted, angry, confused, horrified. A woman in the 6th row stood and shouted toward the stage. A man behind her yelled about calling the police. Parents grabbed their children's hands. The outrage built fast, like water that had been simmering and was finally boiling over. But one voice cut through all of it. Charles Hamilton stood from his VIP seat. He didn't rush. He rose the way a man rises when he believes the room belongs to him. He buttoned his jacket, he straightened his cufflinks, and he spoke loud, clear, and without a single trace of shame. My daughter said what everyone here is thinking. The auditorium went quiet again. The kind of quiet that comes when people can't believe what they just heard. I have given more money to this university than anyone in its history. My family built half the buildings you're sitting in, and I will not let anyone disrespect my daughter. He looked around the pavilion, slow, deliberate, daring someone to challenge him. You have a problem, take it up with me. You won't like how that ends. Margaret Lawson stood frozen behind the podium. She didn't say a word. The woman whose job was to protect every student chose to protect the man who signed the checks, and for a brief, terrible moment, it looked like money had won. Again, the same way it always did in rooms like this. Then something shifted. In the very last row, a chair creaked. Naomi Oliver stood up. Slowly, the way a person stands when they've already decided exactly what they're going to do and exactly how it's going to end. She stepped into the center aisle. She didn't rush. She walked the way someone walks when every step carries an authority they don't need to announce. Row by row, heads turned as she passed. No one in that auditorium knew who she was, but something about this woman made people sit up straighter, made them hold their breath, made them feel, without knowing why, that the balance of power in this room was about to change. Charles was still standing. Chest puffed, jaw locked. He saw movement in his peripheral vision. He turned, and the blood drained from his face. He recognized her from the photograph in his general counsel's office, the one his lobbyists had stared at for 6 months while begging for a meeting. Next to the words, Chairwoman Federal Defense Procurement Oversight Board. Naomi Oliver, the woman who held the fate of his $2.3 billion defense contract. The woman he had called, emailed, lobbied, and practically begged to meet for half a year without getting a single reply. She was standing 10 feet away, looking at him the way a judge looks at a man who just confessed. 2,000 people could feel it. Something massive was about to shift. No one wanted to miss a second. Mr. Hamilton. Naomi's voice was calm, controlled. It didn't need volume. It carried the weight of the federal government behind it. You've been trying to meet with me for 6 months, calling my office, sending your lobbyists to my door. Charles opened his mouth. Nothing came out. You wanted that meeting because you need my signature on a $2.3 billion defense contract. Without it, your company doesn't survive the year. She took one step closer. Her shoes clicked once against the stone floor. The sound echoed through the pavilion like a gavel. Well, Mr. Hamilton, here I am, and I've seen enough. His voice cracked. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I've seen how you raised your daughter. I've seen how you use money to buy silence. I've watched your principal stand at that podium while a young woman was shoved to the ground and say nothing. And I just watched your daughter rip apart someone's diploma and grab her by the hair, on live camera, in front of the entire country. She paused. The wind had stopped. Even the flag on the roof had gone still, like the world itself was listening. That contract is rejected, effective immediately, and every discrimination complaint your company has buried over the last decade will be on the desk of the Department of Justice by Monday morning. Charles staggered back. His face had gone gray. His mouth hung open. His hands trembled. He looked like a man watching his empire crack down the middle and realizing there was nothing he could do to stop it. Brooke stood frozen near the stage. She didn't understand what was happening. She looked at her father the way she always did, waiting for him to fix it, to say something, to write a check, to make it disappear. But Charles Hamilton had nothing left. For the first time in 58 years, his money was useless. His name meant nothing. His threats were empty air. Naomi turned. She walked to where Gloria stood at the edge of the pavilion, still holding the two torn halves against her chest. Naomi put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. She didn't address the crowd. She didn't make a speech. She didn't need to. And the two of them walked out together, side by side, heads high, the afternoon sun warm on their faces as they stepped through the archway. Behind them, the live stream was still rolling, the red light still blinking, every second recorded, every word captured, every face frozen in a frame the country would see before sundown. The clip hit the internet before Gloria and Naomi even reached the parking lot. Someone in the audience had screen-recorded the live stream from the moment Brooke stormed the stage to the moment Naomi said the words, "effective immediately." 3 minutes and 42 seconds. No edits, no filters, just raw footage of a CEO's daughter ripping a black girl's diploma, grabbing her hair and spitting racist venom on a live stage, followed by the quietest, most devastating takedown anyone had ever seen. It was uploaded to social media at 2:14 p.m. By 4 p.m. it had 1 million views. By midnight, 18 million. By the next morning, it was everywhere. Every major news network ran it. Cable shows played the clip on loop. Anchors shook their heads on camera. Pundits argued about institutional racism on split screens. The hashtag trended for 3 straight days. Op-eds poured in from every direction. Professors, journalists, civil rights leaders, former politicians. The clip was translated into a dozen languages. It crossed oceans, and the internet did what the internet does. It dug. Within hours, people found Brooke's social media. Old posts, screenshots of group chats, a photo from sophomore year where she posed in front of the Hamilton Science Building and captioned it, "Daddy bought me a whole building and I still have to sit next to scholarship kids, LOL." Another post from junior year calling affirmative action charity for people who can't compete. Every post was archived, screenshotted, and shared. There was nowhere to hide. Charles Hamilton's crisis team went into full damage control. They drafted a statement, they hired a PR firm, they tried to spin it Brooke was emotional. The incident was taken out of context. The family was deeply sorry. No one bought it. Because the video didn't need context. It spoke for itself. 2,000 witnesses, tens of millions of viewers, a live stream that couldn't be edited, denied, or explained away. Pennington University was the first domino to fall. For 48 hours after the ceremony, the administration tried to stay silent. They released a single statement calling the incident a disruption during commencement and promising an internal review. No names, no accountability, no apology. The backlash was instant and brutal. Alumni flooded the university's phone lines. Donors pulled pledges. Students organized a sit-in at the administration building. Faculty members signed an open letter demanding action. The Department of Education sent a formal inquiry about the university's handling of discrimination complaints. 3 members of the Board of Trustees resigned in protest. On day 3, the dam broke. Pennington University announced that Brooke Hamilton had been expelled retroactively. Her degree was revoked. Every credit, every honor, every record of her graduation erased. The girl who had ripped someone else's diploma on live television now had no diploma of her own. The irony was so sharp it cut. In the same announcement, the university confirmed that Margaret Lawson had been terminated as principal effective immediately. The board cited her failure to act during multiple witnessed incidents of student-on-student violence and racial harassment. No severance, no thank you letter, no quiet retirement, just a locked office and a box of personal belongings left at the front desk. And then there was Charles. Hamilton Industrial's stock had begun falling the moment Naomi's words hit the live stream. By Monday morning, it was down 14%. Investors were pulling out. Contracts with private sector partners were being paused for review, corporate language for running away before the fire spreads. The board of directors called an emergency meeting on Tuesday. It lasted 4 hours. When the doors opened, Charles Hamilton was no longer CEO. He wasn't given a chance to resign gracefully. He wasn't offered a consulting role or a seat on the advisory board. He was told to clean out his office by end of day. Security escorted him to the elevator. On the ride down, Charles pulled out his phone and tried to call Naomi Oliver's office one last time. The line rang 4 times. A receptionist picked up. "Chairwoman Oliver's office?" "This is Charles Hamilton. I need to speak with her. It's urgent." There was a pause, a short one. Then, "I'm sorry, Mr. Hamilton. The chairwoman is unavailable." The line went dead. Charles stood in the lobby of his own building, the building that still had his name on the front, holding a phone that no one on the other end would answer. The security guard by the elevator watched him but didn't say a word. For the first time in his career, Charles Hamilton was standing in a room where no one owed him anything, and he had no idea what to do. But losing the CEO title was just the beginning. 2 weeks after the graduation, the Department of Justice announced a formal civil rights investigation into Hamilton Industrial, not because of the video, not because of the public outrage, because the moment Naomi Oliver's office forwarded the company's file to federal prosecutors, they found what had been hiding in plain sight for over a decade. The investigators didn't have to dig deep. The rot was right there on the surface. Hamilton Industrial had never promoted a single black employee to a senior leadership position. Not one. In 31 years of operation, the company over at 3 times the rate of white candidates with comparable credentials. And then there were the complaints. 2 formal EEOC civil rights complaints had been filed against the company in the last 8 years. Both were filed by black employees. Both described a hostile work environment, racial slurs in meetings, exclusion from client dinners, assignments deliberately withheld, and both had been quietly settled out of court with non-disclosure agreements and 6-figure payouts designed to buy silence. The settlements were signed by Charles Hamilton personally, but the most damaging evidence came from inside the company's own servers, internal emails, dozens of them, messages between Charles and his head of human resources dating back nearly a decade. In one email, Charles wrote, "Keep the numbers where they are. I don't need the headache." In another, "If you have to hire one, put them somewhere they won't be visible to clients." The prosecutors didn't need to interpret the language. It said what it said. Charles Hamilton was indicted on 2 federal charges, fraud in connection with government contracting for certifying compliance with equal opportunity requirements he knew the company was violating, and willful violation of federal civil rights protections in the workplace. The trial began 4 months after the graduation. It lasted 9 days. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. They called 12 witnesses, former employees, HR managers, a forensic accountant who had traced the settlement payments. They presented the emails, they presented the hiring data, they presented the EEOC complaints, and on the 6th day of trial, they played the graduation video. It wasn't entered as direct evidence for the charges, it was admitted as character evidence to show the culture that Charles Hamilton had built. The culture he had funded. The culture he had stood up and defended in front of 2,000 people and a live camera. The courtroom was silent as the clip played on a mounted screen. The judge watched without expression. The jury watched without blinking. Charles sat at the defense table with his hands flat on the surface, staring straight ahead, refusing to look at the screen. But everyone else in that room saw it. Again. Every second of it. The defense argued that Charles was a businessman, not a bigot, that the emails were taken out of context, that the hiring data reflected industry trends, not intentional discrimination, that the graduation incident was his daughter's actions, not his. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty. On both counts. The sentencing came 3 weeks later. The judge called the case a textbook example of institutional discrimination enabled by personal arrogance. He called the graduation video a window into the soul of an organization. Charles Hamilton was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. Hamilton Industrial was barred from receiving any federal contracts for 5 years. For a company that drew 60% of its revenue from government work, the ban was a death sentence in slow motion. And then it was Brooke's turn. Gloria's legal team had filed a civil lawsuit against Brooke Hamilton within weeks of the graduation assault, destruction of property, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The case wasn't complicated. There was video from multiple angles. There were 2,000 witnesses. There was a girl on a stage holding 2 halves of a torn diploma while another girl pulled her hair and told her she belonged on her knees. The civil trial lasted 3 days. Brooke's attorneys tried to argue emotional distress that Brooke had been overwhelmed by the pressure of graduation and acted out of character. But the evidence from 4 years of documented behavior, the social media posts, the campus security report, the group chat screenshots, painted a picture that was impossible to deny. This wasn't a moment of weakness, it was a pattern, a lifestyle, a belief system. The jury found Brooke liable on all counts: compensatory damages for emotional distress therapy costs and reputational harm, punitive damages meant to send a message that money and last names don't protect you from consequences. The total award, $1.2 million. On top of the civil verdict, the local district attorney had filed misdemeanor assault charges for the shove and the hair grab, both captured on video. Brooke entered a guilty plea. She was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory participation in a racial bias education program. When the plea was announced, a reporter outside the courthouse asked Brooke if she had anything to say to Gloria Oliver. Brooke's attorney stepped in front of the microphone. "My client has no comment at this time." Brooke stared at the ground. She had nothing left to say. Because there was nothing left to say. The Hamilton empire didn't collapse all at once, it crumbled, piece by piece. Hamilton Industrial's remaining private sector contracts dried up within months. No company wanted its name associated with the brand. The firm was sold in a fire sale to a competitor for a fraction of its peak value. The day the sale was finalized, the Hamilton name was removed from the building's lobby. The letters left faint outlines on the marble wall like scars. At Pennington University, the board voted unanimously to strip the Hamilton name from every building on campus. The science wing, the football stadium, the scholarship fund. Workers spent a full day removing the brass lettering. Students watched from the quad, some filming, some just standing in silence. Charles's wife filed for divorce the same week. The papers cited irreconcilable differences, but everyone who read the filing knew what those 2 words really meant. The man who had stood in a VIP seat and told 2,000 people that no one could touch his family was now sitting in a federal prison cell. His company was gone, his name was gone, his family was gone, and the contract he had spent 6 months begging for, the $2.3 billion lifeline that was supposed to save everything, had been killed with 8 words from a woman in a gray blazer. That contract is rejected, effective immediately. 3 months after the trial, Pennington University sent Gloria Oliver a letter. It arrived in a thick cream envelope with the university seal embossed in gold. Inside was a formal invitation to a formal ceremony where she would receive a replacement diploma signed by the new interim principal, printed on the same heavy paper presented, with a personal apology from the Board of Trustees. Gloria read the letter at her kitchen table. She folded it neatly. She placed it back in the envelope, and she wrote a 2-sentence reply. "Thank you for the offer. I already have my diploma." She meant it. The 2 torn halves hung in a simple black frame on the wall of her new apartment in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Side by side, edges touching but not taped together, not repaired, not hidden. Every morning, Gloria walked past that frame on her way to the door. Some mornings she glanced at it, some mornings she didn't, but it was always there. A reminder of what it cost and what it was worth. She had accepted a full scholarship to MIT's graduate biomedical engineering program. The department chair had called her personally after seeing the video, not out of pity. He'd read her published research. He'd seen her undergraduate thesis. He told her she was exactly the kind of mind his program needed. Gloria started classes in September. She sat in the front row. She raised her hand. She stayed late in the lab the same way she'd done at Pennington, except this time, nobody called security. She never did a single interview about the graduation. She never posted about it. When reporters called, she let it go to voicemail. When producers offered TV spots, she declined. She didn't need the world to tell her story. The video had already told it. That was enough. One afternoon in October, a first-year student at MIT knocked on Gloria's lab door. She was black. She was on a scholarship. She told Gloria she'd seen the video and almost didn't come to school because she was afraid the same thing would happen to her. Gloria pulled out a chair. She sat the girl down. She told her the truth, that it might happen, that people might try, that someone somewhere would decide she didn't belong. Then Gloria pointed at the framed diploma on her shelf and said, "They tried, and I'm still here. So will you be." The girl came back the next week, and the week after. By the end of the semester, Gloria was mentoring 4 students. She never called it advocacy. She just showed up for people the way she wished someone had shown up for her on that stage. Now let me tell you where the others ended up. Brooke Hamilton moved in with a cousin outside Richmond. No university would accept her. No employer would return her calls. The first result when you searched her name was the video 3 minutes and 42 seconds that had played on every screen in America. She was 22 with a criminal record, a $1.2 million judgment, and a name that had become a punchline. She never issued a public apology, not because her lawyers advised against it, because she still didn't believe she'd done anything wrong. Charles Hamilton reported to the Federal Correctional Institution on a Tuesday morning. He wore khaki instead of navy. He carried a clear plastic bag instead of a briefcase. The intake officer called him by his inmate number, not his last name. His wife was already gone. His company was already sold. The name Hamilton had been scraped off every building it ever touched. All that remained were faint outlines on stone and marble, the ghost of something that used to matter. Margaret Lawson left Virginia quietly. No farewell, no statement. She applied for 3 positions at other universities. All 3 rejected her. The internet never forgets. And that's the thing about power, real power. It doesn't need to scream, it doesn't need to threaten, it doesn't need to rip anything apart. It just stands up, walks forward, and lets the truth do the rest. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had someone try to take away something you earned, not because you didn't deserve it, but because of who you are? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. If this story hit you, smash that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, because we're not done telling these stories, not even close. Stay strong, stay proud, and remember your diploma might be paper, but what it represents, that's unbreakable. Yo, real talk, money don't buy you character. Nah, how you treat people when you think nobody's watching, that's who you are. And dignity? Oh, you can't rip that, ever. Period. Stay solid out there, y'all. The truth always, always wins.
Yo, real talk? Money don't buy you character. Nah. How you treat people when you think nobody's watching? That's who you are. And dignity? Oh, you can't rip that. Ever. Period. Stay solid out there, y'all. The truth always, always wins.